All right. So, welcome to the impromptu podcast. We were just talking business. We decided to do a little interview and talk some business on camera. This is Davis. Davis owns a portfolio of businesses. He is one of the most knowledgeable people I've ever met, especially in the info product, coaching, kind of high ticket space as well. Agency owners, he can help them as well. And he's helped me out a lot with my business, and I've helped him with his business as well. And specifically, we're going to be talking about YouTube today. So, how Davis has used YouTube to grow his business, increase the value of his business as well. So, Davis, thank you so much for coming on today.
Hey, Shane, to be featured, that's an honor, man. As in, you to be on your channel, anything, you crush it on YouTube. So it's my honor.
Awesome. All right. So let's start from the beginning when it comes to your YouTube channel. So the specific channel we're talking about, you help people become management consultants. So amazing career, lots of opportunity in the career. Another great thing about management consulting is that you can get kind of an unrelated degree and then end up getting into management consulting. And that's a very common issue that, a lot of people that watch my channel have is they got a degree. They don't necessarily want to go into the career, but they want to go into a good career. So I think, what you do is awesome. And you've helped a ton of people, literally like thousands of people get into management consulting. So tell me about kind of where you were at with your YouTube channel before you met me and I helped you with it.
Absolutely. So today, I'm glad to talk about one of our portfolio companies, which is my consulting offer. We help people get jobs in management consulting firms. So think about your McKinseys, your Boston Consulting Groups, your Accentures, your Deloittes, and so forth. And for a while, when we were starting the company, and it was, let's say, even when I was doing it in my living room, when I was working at a startup where I couldn't cover my medical bills and everything, I was always trying to figure out a fast way to get people. So is it ads? Is it posting on forums? Is it doing webinars? And of course, in my back of my mind, I should probably do YouTube at some point. We just punted it for the first couple of years because I was like, oh, YouTube's just so slow. It's going to grind it. And even when we started YouTube, honestly, we just didn't know what we were doing. We were just trying to basically, it's kind of like you have no clue how to cook. So you're just putting ingredients together and hope that something's edible. That's honestly how I felt. And I remember for the first 2 years we were doing YouTube, before I met you, we literally, when we categorized it at a meeting, the revenue was so small that it was just under the other bucket. Categorized with all the other experiments that didn't work out. And that like, we were struggling. Like, I honestly felt like, wow, we're putting a lot of effort into a bucket that literally is other combined with everything else. I just felt like a pain. I honestly, if we didn't meet you, I don't think we would have doubled down on YouTube, which of course today is one of our biggest channels.
Okay, awesome. So that's kind of the situation you were in when you first met me with YouTube. You knew that it had a ton of potential because you'd seen other people doing doing really well on YouTube, but you'd put quite a bit of resources and effort into YouTube for several years. You weren't really seeing results from it at that point. So let me know, what were the biggest things that we implemented, maybe like the top 3 biggest things to your YouTube strategy that really helped?
Wow. If I had to really limit it to the big 3 things, obviously there's a lot of things, but let's talk about like the biggest 3 things that moved the needle. If I had to go back in time and let's say that, for example, I didn't have Shane's knowledge the whole time. And it's like, Davis, I'm going to tell you these 3 things, just execute on it versus the amazing wealth of knowledge you gave us. I'll say the 3 things for this. First off is it just comes down to the video selection. For us, we were just trying to figure out, okay, well, let's just try different types of videos. And the methodology that you use to actually strategically just pick the type of videos just saved us so much time because, for example, we might have just made a list of 100 videos and just say, hey, let's just do all of them. Again, it's kind of like getting a bunch of recipes. You don't know which one you're actually going to like. You might be allergic to some of them. You just cook them without knowing. Versus someone coming in and it's like, hey, this is what your goals are. This is what's actually going to get you to the weight that you want or the happiness you want in your food. And that was a game changer because we went from just spending dozens of hours a week trying to figure out what videos work, filming it, to like, no, we know which videos have the highest chance of actually working, right? So that's like the best thing because it doesn't matter if you have the best thumbnail, it doesn't matter if you have the best title, but if the angle, the video itself, the concept isn't there, the rest of it doesn't matter. So that's like the top thing, right?
Yeah.
And then the second thing that was really helpful was just the way that you thought about what was important. What was the 80-20? Like, how do we think about a good thumbnail? How do we think about a good title? How do we even structure the intro? How do we do the CTA? Like the whole thing. It was more like, once you have that structure, you can't unsee it. It's kind of like when you go to a musical performance, you're wowed by the stage production because you don't know how it's set up, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. And so that's the second thing, right? So the first thing is which videos to actually go after. The second thing was how to do the of pieces around it, because it's not just about the video itself, but it's everything from how you're shooting the videos, how you're actually titling it, the thumbnail, all of that. And then the third thing was how to actually do it consistently, because I wasn't doing it consistently on YouTube. Our company wasn't doing it consistently because it was just hard. And you're like, hey, look, it doesn't have to be hard. There's actually a system and a process in place that you taught our editor how to do. And combined with those three things, it becomes like this machine that runs to a point where now we can have spokespeople. Of course, me, in the beginning, I would do it as just a test, but now we have a system that can continue to turn out great quality videos that are actually helping people, even if they end up not working with us. And the people who do work with us, they always say like, oh, YouTube is how I found you guys. So this today, one of our biggest channels, and people still find us through our YouTube channels.
Awesome. There's two other things that I wanted to ask you about. One of them is very specific to your situation. It's actually something that most of my clients don't do, but you were able to implement, which is awesome. And then the other one is monetization related. So you don't have to tell me the types of videos. In fact, don't tell me the types of videos. But one thing that we did is we kind of went through and we looked at the numbers, with UTM parameters and stuff like that. And we saw which videos were actually booking calls, making sales. And then you kind of started making more of those types of videos, right? So can you kind of tell me about that process and how much that increased your lead flow and the amount of people that were actually, buying?
Yeah, absolutely. As in, going back to the food metaphor, if you're trying to, let's say, lose weight and you're trying to figure out what kind of foods would work for you, before what we would do is we'd eat a little bit of everything and then the weight would go down and we're like, okay, what food caused it? But we actually looked at the numbers with you and said, it's this type of food or this type of video. It's like, let's eat more of it. In this case, let's produce more of it. And so it cut down the time even more to figuring out what types of video worked in terms of generating the quality of leads that we want and the type of people. And so it just made the whole process simple to the fact where when we had spokespeople come in and replace me as the face of the channel, we already knew what the recipe would be. And so it's one of those things where I like to use the diet metaphor because so many people try to switch different diets. But what you did was like, no, this is the diet that's going to work for you. You enjoy it. Let's just do more of it versus trying to do a little bit of everything. And so that was a huge game changer.
Awesome. And then the second thing you did is you actually completely removed yourself from the business, which I don't recommend most people do that until a certain, part of the process, but you were actually able to completely remove yourself from the YouTube channel. So can you talk about that a little bit and how you were able to accomplish that and what that has done for your business?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, I own a portfolio company. So I always think about how can I remove myself and be the owner and not just be the worker that has to be there in order for the company to function. And so I remember when I first proposed this idea, I was like, hey, eventually I want to remove myself. And you're like, now too soon, we got to test with you. We got to make it. And you're like, we set a goal that it had to be X amount. And I was like, all right, Shane, you give me more motivation to remove myself. Now we got to test fast. We got to look at the data even more, figure out what works. And eventually we're able to replace myself where we have different spokespeople who can come in and go through and the quality and the comments are still there and people still love our YouTube videos. Obviously some of my older videos still over time brings in leads, but even the newer ones, people trust the people who are representing the channel and so forth and representing the brand. Because I personally, for this goal, obviously I'm going to have another YouTube channel, which is me, but for a brand, I wanted it to be one where it's not just tied to me, where if I decide to go on a conference for 2 weeks, that we're not losing time on videos. And so that was the whole motivation of it.
Okay. So the last thing I wanted to ask you about was operations. So before you met me, you said that YouTube was just difficult, right? It was just hard to do YouTube. After we kind of implemented the system and the step-by-step, like everything you do, just breaking it down into a system, what were the operations like? Were they much smoother after that? Like maybe just give me a little bit of a before and after.
The way I think about our operations before and after meeting you, Shane, is before we were basically trying to be a fancy restaurant serving fast food. And then now we're like McDonald's serving really good food. And that's how I think about it. So let's talk about what that means. So what I mean by a fancy restaurant is we're trying to go over the top, as in we're trying to research videos for hours to figure out what it is. We're not using best practices for the titles or anything, but we're like, hey, this worked for this other thing. Let's just try to make it fancy title. Try to basically outthink everyone else when it's just, no, the answer is just, it's literally there, right there for you. Try to do that with our thumbnail, try to get creative. Every single thing felt like it had to be plated differently in a restaurant. So everything had to be nice versus having an actual format, a system that actually worked. And so as a result of that, we spent way too much money and created way too little profits for what we were putting in terms of time, in terms of the effort. And so afterwards, we literally became a McDonald's that did serve fancy food. And so what I mean by this is that for McDonald's, you know exactly what needs to happen. So now we know quickly what topics we're going to do. There's a script writer who can write out the scripts. There is a talent who films it and an editor who edits it, thumbnails, everything uploads. It becomes a seamless process where we can do this at scale now for multiple videos. Like even before, we were just struggling to even edit one video every 2 weeks. And now we can do 3 to 4 videos a single week with the same editor. And that's the magical change, right? It's like we literally, again, went from trying to be a fancy restaurant where we're producing McDonald's quality food to now we're a McDonald's system producing really nice food.
That's awesome. All right. And then tell me about the before and after. So we talked about the before. What were the results after implementing the content growth engine methodology?
Even in the beginning, like just working with that first year, we were like 4x the amount of profits and revenue we're making out of our YouTube. Obviously grew all the metrics as well. And now it's like one of our channels that brings in 6 figures a month in terms of just the amount of revenue that we're seeing. And it went from like at the bottom of Uber, right? With all the other experiments that were running at the time to now being one of our top traffic sources.
Awesome. And then for your other portfolio companies that you're building up right now, do you think YouTube is going to be one of your main acquisition streams and revenue streams?
100%. There's at least one company where YouTube's going to be one of our main primary, and honestly, working with you, it's just going to save years of time because it's one of those things where whenever you start something, there's a learning curve that you have to go past because you're new, you don't know what you're doing. But with the current channel, I can already see us implementing the same systems you have, even though we're going to have a completely different team because it's a different company, the same systems, the same processes, the same knowledge, the same type of lens that you're looking through. We're going to be able to implement that from day one. And we're actually start implementing this too. It's like, it's all because of you. So thank you. As in, we definitely do this in future portfolio companies, anyone that uses YouTube, same framework.
Absolutely. Hey, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for being such an amazing student as well.
You're an amazing teacher.
Yeah. Okay. So is there any kind of like, maybe like somebody's on the fence about starting YouTube? Maybe they got a business, they're coach, consultant, agency owner. Maybe they've been trying to grow their YouTube for a little bit, or they've been thinking about it for a long time, and they're on the fence about, signing up with us, doing the coaching with me. What would you say to them?
If you're on the fence about working with Shane, his team, and just diving into the community, I would think about 2 things. First off, I would think about, are you actually serious about YouTube? Because if you're not serious about it, you can get there in any different ways. But if you are serious about it, the question I would ask is the second question, which is how much money is it costing you not to have the revenue coming in that you're seeing from all of Shane's students? As in, I would say I'm pretty average. There are other people who are just knocking out of the park even more because they're fully all in there. Just imagine that question that asked me is that, I always ask too, is that imagine that you knew that Shane can get your channel to, let's say $200,000 a month even. And right now, let's say you're producing $2,000 a month. It's costing you $198,000 per month not to work with Shane. So just think about that.
Awesome. All right. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on and doing the interview and talking business, and anywhere that people can find you if they're interested in your portfolio companies. Like if you're interested in becoming a management consultant, or if you're interested in coaching as well. One of his portfolio companies he helps people get to become 7-figure coaches. So anywhere people can find you?
Yeah, if you want to become a management consultant, check out myconsultingoffer.org. We also obviously have a YouTube channel, the same handle. And if you want to check out our portfolio company, or if you're a coach looking to grow your coaching business to at least $1 million in profit per year, you can check out joinpurplecircle.com.
Awesome. All right.